Today, we're on a mission. We're going to crack the code on one of the biggest kitchen mysteries out there, how to make the perfect cacio e pepe. And believe it or not, we're going to do it with a little help from some award-winning science. I mean, think about it. It's a question that has haunted so many of us. You've got pasta, you've got cheese, you've got pepper. It sounds so ridiculously simple. So why, oh why, does this classic Roman dish so often turn into a complete culinary disaster? You know exactly what I'm talking about, don't you? You follow the steps, you're stirring away, full of hope, and instead of that silky, creamy sauce that just beautifully hugs every single strand of pasta, you get, well, you get this, a clumpy, oily mess. It's one of the most frustrating kitchen fails, and today we're going to solve it once and for all. Now, this isn't just some small cooking mistake. For anyone who loves Italian food, this is a full-on culinary catastrophe. But hey, it happens to the best of us, and as it turns out, it even happens to physicists. And when I say the best of us, I really mean it. Let me introduce you to Fabrizio Olmeida. He's a physicist, he's Italian, and even he was struggling with lumpy cacio e pepe. He got so fed up with all the random guessing and trial and error that he decided, you know what, I'm going to tackle this problem like a scientist. And that scientific approach didn't just lead to a better pasta night. Oh no, it led him and his team on a quest that ended with a pretty unique and honestly pretty awesome award, the Ig Nobel Prize. No, that's not a typo for the Nobel Prize. This is the Ig Nobel Prize. And it's an award that celebrates research that's, well, a little surprising, super imaginative, and basically designed to make all of us really fascinated with science. And this motto for the prize is just perfect, right? It totally sums up the spirit of what we're talking about. At first, the idea of applying physics to a pasta sauce might make you chuckle a bit, but I promise you what Olmeida and his team figured out, it's definitely going to make you think. All right, so let's get into the science of the clumps. To actually solve the problem, the team first had to figure out what was happening on a molecular level. They had to understand exactly why those dreaded clumps form in the first place. So what you're aiming for is what's called a stable emulsion. That's the creamy, smooth, absolutely delicious sauce of your dreams. What you usually end up with, though, is a broken mixture, lumpy, oily, and just a huge letdown. The key is figuring out what makes it go from one state to the other. And here it is, the culprit. It all comes down to the proteins in that pecorino cheese. When they get too hot, they do something called denaturing. You can just think of it like the proteins unraveling and then desperately grabbing onto each other, forming these tight little clumps that just won't dissolve. And that's what's ruining your sauce. And there is a very specific danger zone. As soon as your sauce hits 65 degrees Celsius, that's about 150 degrees Fahrenheit, those proteins start to clump up. This one number right here is the key to this entire mystery. Okay, so if heat is the enemy, who's the hero in our story? Well, this was the team's big aha moment. They figured out the solution wasn't just about avoiding heat, it was about cracking the starch code. Now, every traditional recipe tells you to use that starchy pasta water to make the sauce. And in theory, that's great advice. The starch is supposed to help everything emulsify. But what the researchers found is that the amount of starch you get from pasta water is all over the place, and honestly, it's almost never enough to protect those cheese proteins from clumping. And this is the incredible solution they found. There is a magic number. You need to add a little extra starch, like cornstarch or potato starch, equal to about 2 to 3% of the total weight of your cheese. It's that precise. So how in the world does this work? Well, when you mix that starch powder with a little bit of water, it creates a gel. This gel then goes in and coats the cheese proteins, acting like a tiny protective shield. It literally gets in the way, stopping the proteins from grabbing onto each other, even when things start to heat up. It's science to the rescue. And this is my favorite part of the whole story. This isn't just some abstract physics paper. It's a real, practical, basically foolproof recipe that takes all that science from the lab and brings it straight to your dinner plate. So here are the exact measurements that came out of all their research, and look how precise it is. 4 grams of starch for 160 grams of pecorino romano. If you do the math, that's 2.5%, right in that magic window we just talked about. And the method itself is just so clever. First, you make that starch gel. Then, and this is key, you mix that gel into the cheese while it's at a low temperature, off the heat. You're pre-coating those proteins. Then, and only then, you add the hot pasta,
and use a little pasta water to get it to that perfect creamy consistency. It is a scientifically guaranteed path to sauce perfection. But this story is really about so much more than just pasta. It's about the amazing places that simple, pure curiosity can take you.
This quote from Fabrizio Olmeida himself really just says it all, doesn't it? I mean, this guy is a physicist who studies single-cell genomics, but he was fascinated by a problem in his kitchen, and he followed that fascination, and it led to this amazing discovery. It's such a great reminder to just explore the things that interest you. And this quote from the president of his institute just drives that point home. Great research, incredible discoveries, and yet, even great pasta, they often start with creativity, passion, and just a sense of fun. It's not always about finding the answers, but about enjoying the search for them. So, the next time you're facing some frustrating little problem, whether it's in the kitchen or anywhere else in your life, just remember the story of Cacio e Pepe. Think about the science that might be hiding just under the surface, waiting for someone to find it. What everyday mystery will you be curious enough to solve?